Nadine is the managing director and founder of Equity by Design. Nadine, you are a seasoned practitioner and researcher in equity, right? We've admired you over the years with all the work you've done. What do you think about the Accord's recommendation on reshaping outreach? And several of the recommendations focus on addressing student poverty, as we've heard. Would this actually change and increase the participation of students from equity groups? All these recommendations, thoughts?
Look, Sonal, it's a valid question, and in the spirit of unpacking the Accord recommendations, I've asked some questions of the recommendations and warned Barney that I have some quibbles. So with regard to the building aspiration recommendation, which is recommendation 11, which you have on the screen, it is to encourage, greater aspiration, participation, success in tertiary education. The government is to lead this activity. The important point to take away here is that the recommendation is to split funding along the lines of prospective students and outreach work and current students that are, eligible for needs-based funding. So this is new. Previously, universities have got funding for both partnership work, outreach work, and the support of their current students in the same program, which was the HIP. And so the proposal is to split this up, which I don't think is a bad thing, in principle. But again, as with many of these things, the devil is in the detail. And then so the detailed recommendations around outreach are that the Commonwealth collaborate with state and territory governments around consistent careers advice, tick, nothing wrong with that. That they collaborate again with state and territory governments around post-school pathways and their visibility, in the secondary school system, again, tick. And then that there is a national comms campaign, around sharing examples that build aspiration. And I have to admit to you all, I did roll my eyes at this one, that, after 14 years of work in this space, we can't go beyond a comms campaign to build aspirations, so I think we had moved on from that state of affairs, but it doesn't seem so. And I think what I find more concerning is that the overriding question for me is, where are the universities in this recommendation, right? So there's no obvious place for us to play. It's very much driven by the government. And then if you go into the text, it is around collaborative, consortia-led and regionally networked approaches to outreach. Again, there isn't any indication to me that universities would get dedicated funding to drive outreach work, which they used to get, at the start of the HEP, where every institution got a base grant to be in the outreach space. And I think, so the question here is, are we unwittingly disabling the sector-wide commitment and the capability of institution to contribute to widening participation? Some universities will always do that, there's a strong commitment, whether this is by their purpose or whether this is, in a commercial sense, in terms of, widening participation is really important for load. Some universities will always be in this space, but I think, that proposed approach will let some universities off the hook because they don't get any dedicated funding for outreach. Why would they play? And even more concerningly, I think you might take away the capability of universities to partner in the consortia. Who will be the universities who are part of these consortia that do outreach? So I think this is really quite tricky. And from a university point of view, I can't really see myself in this recommendation. And there isn't a strong hook for us to really say this is a national commitment. And it's also, it works against the targets because everybody gets their target, but sort of not everybody needs to play in the outreach space. Again, it's counterintuitive. So that's the outreach one. This is the student support and income support, right? And it's yes. So this is the great news story. And I'm so pleased that this has been picked up in the really prominent way that it has. I think the question for me here is, how do we address the stigma and fear associated with using Centrelink? And I'm not telling anyone any secrets when I'm saying robo-debt really did not help the case. And so you would, in the report, there's a graphic that the use of Centrelink support has decreased over time. And so I think in addition to all the great recommendations and sub-recommendations that are already in this recommendation 15, we would benefit from a recommendation around how does Centrelink show up on campus? You know, like, is there a way to make that a more accessible, less stigmatized, less scary service? And could there be a potential partnership, you know, like with universities and Centrelink? Again, it's an opportunity because there are, you know, like, while this is such an intuitive recommendations for middle-class people, you know, like there is like a real barrier to accessing the support that is available. And I've heard this many times across my travels. 2 graphs, and I know I'm also super quickly running out of time. Financial issues are not just a problem for low ICS students. You can see regional and remote students higher than the low ICS cohort, and First Nation students higher again. So this really cuts across the equity groups, which is why, you know, like, that systematic support through, you know, like the national income support system is so important. And this is to just put the, you know, the level of poverty into perspective. So the budget standard, you know, that top line that we have for the austerity payment represents an adequate lifestyle. And so the current payment gets you to 71% of an adequate lifestyle. So, you know, work out what you're going to do minus the 28%. And where you're going to cut adequate. And then similarly, the poverty line, the Henderson poverty line, which is the final graph towards the bottom. So on that measure, the student support payment, if a student only relied on the student support payment, they were under the poverty line by 34 percentage points. And again, you know, like, this has real consequences. We're hearing about this every day from the students that many of you work with. Finally, so the really important, and it's in the chat, you know, there's questions on this, like the financial support for placements. Yes, placement poverty is real. I was so pleased again to see that in the report. Again, here, the devil is in the detail. And I've talked to quite a few colleagues, you know, since that recommendation was adopted. And I think the big question here is the payment for the placement considered a living stipend or compensation for labor? And you know, like, all the indications are it can't be the latter. It has to be the former. You know, it needs to be considered as a living stipend, because if it's considered compensation for labor, we run into all kinds of problems on the university side, on the EAs, you know, like, this is going to be messy. And then if it's a living stipend, you know, why would the state governments, why would the employers get engaged? You know, so there's a big question mark there. And the final one is, someone asked me to look at the jobs broker, which I had in my initial reading of the report sort of skipped over. And I note Barney's point that it should be read in conjunction with the national skills passport. Again, sort of my immediate response is, you know, as somebody who writes program logic models for a living at the moment, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? That is not super clear to me. And why do we think that the national jobs broker would solve the problem? So I think that argument hasn't been made super convincingly, and why it needs to be a national, you know, like, approach that gets outsourced. Again, you know, like, I would think that some universities really distinguish themselves, you know, in that space, have on-campus employment services. Our colleagues at Griffith do this really well, you know, like, so is there a, you know, like, a role around showcasing good practice, demonstrating the efficacy of local solutions rather than creating a national solution? But I'll go back, Barney, and have a look at that in the context of the National Skills Passport, and maybe I change my mind. That's it from me, Sonal.